You see a little prompt on your screen. If you could just okay, that it's okay to record. Okay, logistic number 2. And then we are going to be providing resources post the presentation. So everyone that registered will be getting a follow-up email with the free resources that we're providing as part of the presentation, as well as a link that's good for 7 days to the video part of the presentation, so that you can rewatch it if you so desire. The other option is that this is part of a long-running series. I'm trying to do these once a month to provide education and information on health and mindset and wellness. And I'm putting all of the videos on Patreon, and if you're interested in those or the handouts or the presentations, the PDFs, those are all available on Patreon. So you can ask me at the end about that if you're interested. All right. Any other questions before we rock and roll? Okay. So weird. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just open up my screen here. Just give me a minute to find the places. There we go. All right. So today's topic, we're talking about calming the nervous system, and we're going to be offering tools from yoga and energy science. And I'm delighted to have Miss Tammy Goen here with us. Her company is called Lifescape Wellness, and Tammy and I connected through some mutual colleagues. And what I love about her is she specializes in highly sensitive people, which is something I discovered in my own journey when I was raising my children about that. So she specializes in sensitivities and understanding how to navigate all that and create a calmer, happier life for people. So I'm going to let her tell you guys a little bit more about herself. So I'm going to stop sharing so Tammy can be full screen and tell us a little bit about her and how she came to do all the beautiful things she does.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. So yeah, I learned about my sensitivity journey, or the specifics about it about 10 years ago, but I always knew I wanted to help people, and I was always drawn to energy and things like that. So I started my working career off with psychology and as a licensed counselor. And then, not surprising, as I look back at it, hit burnout in a really big way and had to make a big shift, and went to massage school where I learned energy work. And that was a really great fit. So I did both of those for a while, but really ended up missing a lot of that one-on-one help with the emotional, aspect, and went into coaching from there to kind of regroup, recircle, and bring all of that in together. But along that journey, I had discovered what high sensitivity is all about. And that helped me reframe my entire life up until that point. And as I became more and more aware of that, working with my clients, I also became aware that the majority of folks that were finding me were also highly sensitive. And sometimes they weren't even aware of that until we got started. And then that became apparent. So that was kind of an organic way that was created, but it just became clear to me that was like a niche that was not being met. So that's been my primary focus since that time. But I incorporate the energy piece because that's always really fit well with me. And even as a counselor, I worked a lot with cognitive behavioral focus, which allowed me to incorporate things that weren't just sitting and talking and expecting things to get better. And one of the things that I really focused on was self-care and stress management tools, and what we would call now mindfulness, though that wasn't really the term then. So that's been part of my journey the whole time. So I really enjoy that aspect of bringing in the energy piece and looking at our intention and all of our energy and our emotions and feelings. Everything is energy based anyway, and bringing that all together. So that's one of the reasons that I connected so well with Teresa, I think. So yeah, so it's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to sharing about some sensitivity stuff.
Great. No, lovely to have you. I'm thrilled. So I am going to launch right in. Forgive my technical stuff. So let's go to the next piece. So really the focus of all of these is to be more self-aware, be more aware of your mindset, your energies, what you're putting out there for your own health and well-being. And this is kind of like project education exploration. So learning a lot of different things about a lot of different wellness modalities. And Tammy brings a kind of a unique perspective to the piece on sensitivity that I really enjoy. So today we're hoping that you get a better understanding of sensitivity differences, the benefits and challenges, because whenever we talk about sensitivity, it isn't necessarily a bad thing, although many of us, I know some of you, if you're like me, you can relate to being told that you're too sensitive. I certainly was growing up. And spent most of my adult life correcting that belief. So there's a lot of benefits to that, a lot of power in it that can be used for yourself and your self-care. And then tools for how to balance sensitivities, and then harmonizing yourself inside and harmonizing some of your relationships. So making better choices about relationship and holding your own in relationship and learning how to connect in a healthier way. And finally, some basic tools for self-awareness and nurturing the nervous system. We're each going to offer a few from our collective backgrounds that we hope you take one or two, whatever resonates, and incorporate it and play with it. So having said all those beautiful things, I'm going to hand it off to Tammy, and she gets to go.
To go. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, everybody seeing that okay?
Yeah.
All right, so high sensitivity, the technical term is actually sensory processing sensitivity, and it's a bit of a mouthful. So high sensitivity works pretty well, or just HSP for highly sensitive person. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time to explain it a little bit. Usually I find when I explain to someone that I work with highly sensitive people, they kind of, I talk with them later and they're like, oh yeah, I just figured that meant, you're just slightly higher than most people, or they see it as some kind of a detriment. That it's just something that you have to learn how to get a handle on. So I like to be really clear when I'm talking with people, and an educational piece, and then today we'll talk about it as well. And I like to start with what it's actually not, because again, it can have these connotations that are completely off base. So it is not a disease, a diagnosis. It's not a disorder or something that needs to be fixed or something that we just have to get over, which I find a lot. It's like, oh yeah, I get a handle on that and then everything will be fine. But it's a lot deeper than that. And it's not something that we just develop as a result of, say, trauma. People ask me that sometimes, and it certainly can be exacerbated by that. But it's actually, it's not just something that comes upon us at some point in our life, and it's not something we choose. For a lot of things like that, people are saying, oh, it's just a choice, and you're like, well, why would I choose that? It makes things a little challenging. But it's not a choice. It's not something that's just inherently bad about us that it needs to be fixed. And it's also not the same thing as shyness or even introversion, because actually about 30% of highly sensitives are extroverted. And there's actually a subcategory called high sensation seeking HSPs, which are those that are really, really put themselves out there sometimes. They're not necessarily even extroverted, but maybe they're bungee jumping, and they're like going on some kind of a world tour just because they like learning and exposing themselves to all these kinds of things, but then they end up getting, overwhelmed because of that. But so there's a whole range of that, which is one of the things we're, talking about today, is that whole recognition of sensitivities, but recognizing within that there's a whole range of that, and you can be sensitive in certain areas and not in others. So there's no blanket, if you are highly sensitive, you are like this, and there's no room for movement there. It's variant across the board. So, and it's also not something that, you're not weak, you're not lacking, you're not lesser than, and you definitely are not antisocial, because as we will learn, that is a huge piece for highly sensitives, is to be social, but in a very specific way. So what high sensitivity is, it is genetic. So again, it's not a choice. It's not something that develops. It might be exacerbated, or we might see results from it in a different way, say from trauma or some kind of experience, because of what we're the way we are, as we are, but we are born that way. So they've done studies. Elaine Aron is the person who did the primary studies in the 90s, and they studied babies, from out of the womb pretty much, and the sensitivity is apparent, from day one. So it's about 10 to 15 or 15 to 20% of the population. Some of the recent research is actually showing it might be as high as 30. And a lot of people I talk to these days, especially within the healing realm, believe that it might even be higher, specifically because of all the changes happening in the world and cosmically and everything, that there's a shift to having even a higher percentage of high sensitivities or highly sensitives. So anyway, it's 50-50 male female. Again, and I mentioned 30% it tends to be extroverted, so not all introverted. And it's all about processing. So it's not anything that doesn't, that makes you inherently completely different from other people. It's just the way we process things. So this is kind of a really good rundown of trying to remember what exactly all of this means in terms of the sensitivity is this DOES. So it's all about that processing, so that we process things at a really deep, meaningful level. So everything has more meaning. It has more impact than those who are not highly sensitive. It doesn't mean that we necessarily focus on things that are different than other people. They just affect us more, and we are aware of them more, but they just get processed really deeply. And then we tend to get either overstimulated or overwhelmed more easily. We pull in things like we're a big sponge, and our filters aren't quite the same or as many or whatever. So those things really come at us easily, and we just soak it all up. So that can lead to kind of being in fight or flight all the time. It can lead to exhaustion or just feeling like, life is just too much because of that overstimulation. And then it's also emotionality based. So we have our feelings are really experienced deeply when they're really intense. And sometimes that is obvious. Like some people who are highly sensitive will be like, oh yeah, they're always just, their emotions are huge. You can see them all the time. But sometimes it's the reverse of that, because they're so huge. And sometimes because we don't get really great, support or understanding or reaction to those things, then we tend to hold them in and become very quiet or seem very stern, or non-emotional, even though what's really happening is that we're just experiencing so much of that emotionality, we don't know what to do with it. And then there's the sensing the subtle, which is just being aware of every little thing in your environment when other people don't notice, the majority of it. So that can be, of course, positive and negative in terms of how it affects us. But it's not necessarily like, it's not a bad thing, but being, detail oriented, just noticing everything is pretty typical. So there can be challenges, of course, because pretty much anybody in a minority, if we're only like 20% of the population-ish, that means 80% is experiencing things much differently. So we're not, in the norm, what's expected of us. So we can be misunderstood. We can be seen as, unreasonable. Sometimes people are like, drama queens because their emotions are so big and they make a big deal out of things. So that can be a challenge. And again, the overwhelm, the emotionality, it's often hard for us to let go of things. It takes us a long time to process things. I usually kind of joke that, if you've ever had somebody tell you something, you're like, oh, I need to think about that for a little bit. And maybe you think about it for like 3 days, and then you come back to them and say, okay, this is what I think. And the person's like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh, remember we talked about that? And they're like, that was days ago. Why are we talking about that now? But you took that time to process it because it was all, it was really important, and you went through that process. So sometimes that happens. If you are curious, if you are highly sensitive, if any of this is kind of like, this is kind of sounding like me, but you're not really sure, or if you know somebody else that might be, it tends to be like what I've been talking about. So that someone who's probably overwhelmed or stressed quite a lot of the time, easily distracted, especially so in the environment. And not everybody has this. I have one of my really good friends is highly sensitive, and for some reason she's able to ignore all kinds of sounds. We'll be hiking and her keys will be jingling, and I'll have to stop and say, could you put that in your pack? She's like, oh yeah, I didn't even notice. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't notice? You're highly sensitive. But but there's, again, that big spectrum of that sensitivity. But we tend to like pull in all those things, like that sponge. And so it's hard to just pick one thing to focus on. So all of that stuff coming in at the same time can be one of those things that, you can say, oh yeah, that person I think might have some sensitivity, going on because they can't manage in a noisy environment, for example. That can be really manifest itself in work situations when you have, like I have people who are highly sensitive and I don't know how they manage it, or in like an open office situation with, little cubicles, but they're all open and you can hear everyone's conversations and that kind of thing. That would normally be very challenging for a highly sensitive. And then also on a different level, people who tend to kind of just know when something's off, when somebody needs something. They're kind of the ones, the go-to people when they have something they want to run by somebody. Often it's someone who's highly sensitive because they know they'll get it, or they'll have that compassion to listen to it. So those people who are kind of always in that role often are highly sensitive. And then again, being detail oriented, seeing everything, seeing all sides, but also having to take everything in, maybe taking longer time for making a decision because they're processing everything so much. So it is really all about the nervous system. That fight or flight idea is a key for being able to manage high sensitivity, because if our nervous systems, I always think about it as that we kind of start off at a higher level of activation anyway. So everything that comes in is going to affect us more. So we have less time to handle all that before it becomes overwhelming. So it's such a huge thing to be able to really work to calm our nervous system, to lower that baseline so that there is more to work with to handle everything that comes at us. And part of that is personal care, things that really lower that threshold. So so all those lead to the distractibility, depletion. All of those things will make things so much harder if our nervous system is on edge. And if you're feeling like you're in fight or flight all the time, that overwhelm is just huge. It's going to be very difficult to handle everything that's coming in. So it's really important to take care of that nervous system. And I'll come back to that for the self-care piece. But in relationships, again, we were talking about harmonizing relationships. It's very important to have that relationship with yourself. So that's one of the key things that I work on with all of my clients, is to look at that self-relationship, the self-awareness and validation, compassion, self-love, being able to say, this is me. I can't use it as an excuse, but it helps me to understand everything. And so it's okay. I am okay. I'm wired this way. That this is who I am, and make peace with that. And then be able to go beyond that and say, this is an amazing thing. How can I use this? So having that relationship with yourself, but it's also really key to having good relations, harmonized relationships with other people. And part of that work that I also do is helping people to share the sensitivities with people in a way that they can understand. And like with any communication, we have to recognize that we all come from a different place. So when we don't understand how someone else is reacting, they don't understand how we're reacting either. We have to have that, two-way view. So working on that a lot. And then of course that, shows up in various social situations, work situations. So being able to share that and acknowledge, accept different viewpoints, but then learn how to share from a excuse me, from a place of confidence and self-acceptance is great. So it's not all negative. There's amazing things that come with being highly sensitive. We are the canaries in the coal mine. We tend to be the ones that are aware of everything because we sense the subtle. We're aware constantly, and so that can be very beneficial. I just finished actually writing a chapter for a co-author book that's going to be coming out next month, and experiencing my journey and talking about this story where I woke up in the middle of the night, dead sleep, smelling something burning, like a hot electrical smell, panicked. And I get up and I walk out into my living room, and it's suddenly I can't smell it. I get down on my hands and knees. It's so subtle. And I finally find that my baseboard heater, that's where it's coming from. So I throw the fuse, and I find out later that the wires were just there was a short and they were just melted into this ball of whatever. And I thought, wow, I just stopped my house from burning down. That's really great. So it can definitely be a positive thing. We tend to be very highly intuitive, aware of energies, and that can be a very, very positive thing. We're likely to be more compassionate and empathetic, be self-aware, have a really rich inner world, and conscientious. And we, again, tend to see things from all sides, different viewpoints. That tends to be good for negotiation skills and that kind of thing. And we do tend to be creatives. A lot of artists, musicians. Alanis Morissette is one of a very famous HSP, and she talks about it all the time. So if you want to ever catch any of her information, you can just search her and HSP, and you'll hear her talking about it. It's really great to hear her. And she was in part of the movie that's just called Sensitive, which was put out by Elaine Aron too. So you can search for that, and she's a guest on that. So imagination, creative outlets, that kind of thing is pretty typical. And then that attention to detail, those are all there. And there are, many benefits. Part of it, of the awareness and learning about it, is understanding, oh, a lot of these things that I have, I assumed that everybody else had, but I realized that I have more, or they're, heightened compared to other people. I just thought that was normal. Or, in the 80%, not necessarily, but could be an indicator of just a great benefit of high sensitivity. So self-care, again, the nervous system, anything that we can do to calm that place so that we can be in that rest and digest versus the fight or flight mode, so that we stay in that calmer place, so that we have more resources to handle everything that comes. So I find personally that meditation is one of the most beneficial for high sensitivity, for calming that nervous system and being able to let go of the distraction and the impact of everything that overwhelm, and calming that down. And then all of the self-care practices, yoga, of course, any kind of a mindfulness practice, even, like mindful walking, hiking, getting out in nature, anything that allows you to just go within, let everything else go, calm that nervous system. And then boundaries, which I won't get into, that's a really big topic, but that's really important, learning what your boundaries are, how to set them, how to maintain them, so that you can keep that nervous system in a calm state. All right, so make sure I'm not going too far here. These are just some ideas on how to support people with high sensitivity, how to also support yourself, change your environment, look at your schedule and the noise around you. Anything that you can actually change is great to do. Some things we can't, and then we have to figure out how to address it, ourselves. But I think that's going to wrap it up, so I don't take too much time. So there'll be more information later for on the contact for everybody. But Teresa, do you want me to go ahead and do the technique now, or wait until after?
I think the technique now would be great, just to give us a little break with all the talking would be great.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of the energetic piece and being being aware of sensitivities and aware of ourselves, I'm going to just take you through a mindfulness technique, a body scan. And wherever you're comfortable, you can close your eyes, you can stare off in front of you, just be in a good place where your spine is nice and straight, and you can have good airflow and energy flow. And whatever you're comfortable with, go ahead and close your eyes if you'd like. And so the whole purpose of this technique is just for awareness, self-awareness. So you don't have to do anything, change anything, make anything happen. So it's all recognition, awareness, and just again, being in that place of self-acceptance. So as you settle into your seat, wherever you are, I'm going to have you just focus on the top of your head. And as we go, all you're doing is noticing things. So you're just going to notice how the top of your head feels, maybe down to your forehead. Just notice if there's any tension, any, tightness, itchiness, anything at all. And then as you are paying attention to that, go ahead and also focus on your breathing. And just make sure as we go through, we're just noticing. So we want to just be very calm and centered. And just allow that breath to slow down and get deeper. And notice how that top of the head feels, maintaining that slow, deep breathing. And then move down lower into the rest of your head. Notice the muscles around your eyes or your jaw, the back of your head, anything at all that you might notice that you're aware of about your head. And you don't have to change anything. It's just about recognizing. Focusing on that nice, deep, steady breathing. Just being aware. And see if there's anything that you just hadn't noticed before. Now that you're paying attention, it becomes apparent. And you just acknowledge that it's there. And now you move down to your throat and your neck to see if there's any tightness or tingling, itchiness. Feel like you need to swallow. Just paying attention, but not needing to fix anything. Letting that breath be deep and slow, move down into your chest and your upper back, the tops of your shoulders. Just looking for any kind of sensation at all. Maybe you feel lightness or relaxation. Anything at all, just being aware. Continuing that deep breathing, moving down into your lower back and your abdomen. And the abdomen area is a place we tend to hold a lot of tension. Just notice if there's anything there. And you don't have to do anything with it, just being aware. And then put your focus on your upper arms, your biceps and triceps, somewhere between the shoulders and the elbows. Just noticing. Maybe they feel light or heavy or tense. And then you focus on the lower arms and your hands. Just letting things be as they are, just increasing that awareness, giving that time to pay attention to your body. And if you do notice any tension, just check in and make sure you're still breathing slowly and deeply. Sometimes when we're tense, our breath shortens and gets shallow. So just being aware of all of that. And now moving down into your pelvis. That's where your focus is, just to see if there's any sensations that you can be aware of at all. And then moving down, still breathing down into your legs, your upper legs, your thighs and your hamstrings. Just noticing there might be sensations you were totally aware of before you got started, and there might be something you had no idea was there, but we're just noticing. Down into the lower legs and the feet. Seeing if there's any kind of sensation to be aware of and just acknowledge. And now just focusing, kind of stepping back from yourself, noticing the whole body all at once. See if there's anything in particular that's really calling to you. And if there is, you can kind of note that mentally for later, and you can address that if you would like. But right now we're just paying attention. And just be aware right now of that idea of honoring yourself wherever you are, whatever is happening in your body at this moment. Just accepting, noticing, and letting it be there. And then take one last final deep breath in. And then just let everything release with that exhale. And then whenever you are ready, you can come back to your seat, your room, back to the video. Yeah, so sometimes just being mindful without having any purpose is a really great way to connect with yourself and to honor yourself. So it's one of many, many techniques that you can incorporate every day to calming that nervous system and honoring yourself. So thanks.
Thanks, Tammy. That was awesome. You got me thinking about 5,000 different things now. I'm going to have a challenge. You know, this is such a vast topic, really, sensitivity in general, and how we cultivate self-awareness of what we call self-referencing, like where we are in space, what's happening inside, and then referencing our edges. So a lot of times what I find, and you help me think about this, so what I find with people that are highly sensitive, myself included, is that we don't give ourselves permission to expand into our space because we don't know where our edges are. And so that's something I have some training in. It's been really helpful to me. So I really thank you for that. Very, very thorough, very thorough. So I'm going to go ahead and launch. And again, guys, if you have questions, please just put them in the chat if you would, and we will definitely cover them. Let me see if I can share my screen now. And of course, there we go. We'll go to the next one. So, you know, my expertise comes more from the Ayurvedic and yoga approach with nervous system issues. And there, again, this is so vast, but I just wanted to give you an idea, just visually. This isn't a test or anything, about how complex the nervous system is. You've got the sympathetic nervous system is really more where things are more reactive, and the organs that they're tied to on your right. And then you have the parasympathetic, which is really the relaxation response, and the organs that they're related to. So in yoga, we work a lot with the parasympathetic nervous system. Everything that has been designed, from postures to breathing techniques to meditation to concentration, all of that is focused on becoming more skilled at that relaxation response and becoming more self-aware, like when you are coming out, what pulls you out, those kind of things. So I like the simplicity of what you said, Tammy. I'll just add to it. The accelerator is when we go up, like you were saying, you go up and sometimes out, which is the fight or flight. That's your sympathetic nervous system really out of balance. And the brakes is the relaxation response, calming down. And what we want is to be able to feel that we're skilled at recognizing the accelerator, because there are times when it's needed in life. There's times when you need to move into that response, like maybe when the house almost burned down. And then there's times where you can recognize it's not a present moment danger, and that you're feeling yourself getting pulled outside of yourself, if that makes sense. You're getting pulled into someone else's energy or someone else's drama. Again, back to this idea that we can't recognize, with certain sensitivities, we don't always recognize what's ours and what isn't ours. So getting more skilled at that. And this is, most of you, I don't know Kathy, but I know the rest of you in terms of your familiarity with yoga. This is a really simple statement about how it works. It's not just asana. It's everything is conditioning you to be more in tune. Just like we would work a muscle, we're working the parasympathetic nervous system to train it to be more alive and more accessible to us in life. And that also contributes to cognitive functioning as well. So these notes I've made here all come from kind of the science of what happens when you're in a yoga practice, whether you're just sitting or you're doing some simple movements and then some simple breath. It doesn't have to be 2 hours of yoga. It's just more of, as Tammy referred to, having some sort of daily practice that you're working, you're conditioning or reconditioning yourself to be more sympathetic to yourself, more self-aware, more skilled at your own reactivity. So you become the observer. And we've documented this now over the years. There's been way more, and I'm thrilled about it, way more actual scientific studies being done, and a lot of them are published in PubMed now, which is the National Institutes of Health research arm, to show that these things actually happen. So there's physiological changes when we practice yoga immediately to the nervous system. It stimulates the vagus nerve, which is in your belly. So Tammy alluded to tension in the belly. When there's tension in the belly, that's sort of the connective vagus nerve running all the way up into the brain. And when there's tension there, it affects the nervous system immediately. So learning how to wake it up so that it can do its job. It activates the parasympathetic, inducts the relaxation response. And again, back to this idea of repetition or conditioning the muscle. So we're working to break up all of these patterns, physical, psychological, emotional, that are deeply embedded, that we may have learned from childhood, that have, based on our sensitivity, that we have put into place that really did help us at one point. So that's our go-to. But now we're looking at broadening as adults and being able to see that we actually do have some amount of control over those responses and changing those muscles a little bit. I hope that makes sense. And then meditation, as Tammy led us beautifully through, just observing inside, just noticing where you're holding tension, notice what your thought patterns are, becoming the noticer rather than the doer. Just moving into that frame of mind often shifts things. And then change in cognitive learning can become realized from there. So I love this little quote from the Yoga Sutras. This is the philosophy behind it, is when after a moment of stability, the mind ceases its fluctuations and remains naturally quiet, it begins its transformation to stability. So I think what we're all seeking is more internal stability. Yeah. Okay. So how you engage anything. So relative to mindfulness, that's really what it is. How you engage anything really matters. So yoga in popular culture is really seen as a physical practice, and it's really much more than that. It's really based in energy science, and I won't go into too much detail about it, but all the poses are shaped meant to do all of the things we've been talking about, which is to condition and nurture the parasympathetic nervous system, to reference self, and to be the observer, and ultimately to seek balance and connection. This all makes sense, yeah? So I won't go down this, you can all see it. So knowing oneself and a willingness to stay in that inquiry, developing that curious mind. And that's where, when we're compassionate with ourselves, we have better seeing. We can see more what's going on, and we can actually see our power to make subtle shifts. Okay. And I love saying this, it's not a workout. I get so many, comments of, did you have a good workout? Well, no, I had an interesting practice, or I had a beautiful practice, or I had a calming practice. I didn't have a workout. And I find this is particularly important with highly sensitive people, is not to go at it. There's kind of a setup with going after a workout mentality, which puts you in, and I don't know if this is going to make sense, the aggressor and the receiver of the aggression, and that's how you're treating yourself. You get into this mindset where I'm going outside of myself to work out, as opposed to coming in myself to open up. So the movement is designed, yes, it can be strong, but the movement is designed, or is the pathway in. It is not the goal. And I love the last goal. The goal is self-awareness, compassion, and non-aggression towards self. All right, and these are the primary tools. Again, most of you are aware of these. There's more, but these are the main things. So when you familiarize yourself with the terms. So we have asana, which are the postures or seats. They're all designed to do something very specific for your energy system. Pranayama, which is the breathing practices, and Tammy alluded to the deeper breath, learning how to release tension in the body. Those are all things that make that super important. And then meditation and concentration, which is dhyana. And then mantra, repetitive prayer. So whether you like Sanskrit or not, the focus in meditation could be a prayer. It could be, in Catholic traditions, you have a rosary where you're just saying the same prayer over and over and over and over and over again. In yoga, we have a mala where we say the same mantra over and over again, where we're calling in a particular energy. But it has to resonate for it to be meaningful. It doesn't have to be Sanskrit. So if you don't understand it and you're just doing it, it's not the same as if you're injecting it with meaning and bringing that energy inside. So I just offer that as another, I told you it was huge. Anyway. So here's how it affects it. You know, there are many asanas. The primary goal is to achieve better physical and mental health, not just be physically strong. They each have a special name and a special form and a distinct way of performing. And this is, again, alluding to what is being triggered energetically to work with your parasympathetic nervous system and work with any imbalances in the body. It has the capacity to overhaul, rejuvenate, and bring the entire system into a state of balance. So one of the things I cue people about when we're first learning yoga is to think about releasing tension from the outside in. And Tammy, when you were guiding us through the practice, you started from the top to the bottom, but the tension in the fingers, the wrists, the outer limbs, so that you then create this space inside of you where you can self-reference and feel more centered. Okay. So I just put this picture in just for yucks to show you that there is an energy sciences. There's specific reasons that we do these shapes. It's not just, so I just give you the analogy of downward dog. You can see all the arrows going in all different directions, just to give you an idea that it really has been scientifically studied to understand all the organs it's affecting, all the neural pathways it's affecting, all the respiration, the circulatory system, all the systems are being affected. So it was designed with the subtle body in mind, with the energy body in mind. And I don't know how much I want to go down all of these paths. Let me just throw that up there for a minute. I could detail this. This all makes sense. I know some of you starts to sound a little bit more redundant here, and we're running out of time. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of fast forward a little bit. So you see that one, and then give you a few poses to consider when you're feeling that sense of overwhelm or reactivity that can really be helpful in grounding you and bringing you back to center. This one is one of my favorites. It's called Viparita Karani, legs up the wall. And the way that it's shown here is with something over the eyes, because one of the things with sensitive reactions or sensitive people is that we're drawing in so much, as Tammy referenced, we're drawing in so much, and then we have to sort through and do all that. So something over the eyes actually calms the senses so you're not taking in as much. That's why the eye bags are important. You don't have to use a bolster under your hips. You can just simply rest your sacrum on the floor. Just doing that is very grounding. And she's showing a sandbag on the feet. That just helps with the release of tension and fatigue in the legs. You don't need that. So physically, if this doesn't look like it's possible for you, you can always just get down in this position and bring your shins on a chair. And it will have much the same effect. So we have these bones in the back of our hips. Our hips are our ground in addition to our feet. And when we can feel them settling, just the settling of the actual bones helps create that parasympathetic response. I'll talk about the bones in my little exercise here. And then this one is awesome. For some of you, this might not be accessible because of knees. You can use pillows underneath the knees or pillows underneath the abdomen, support for the head. But this is in addition to all of these beautiful effects for a gentle stretch for thighs, hips, and ankles and back and neck pain. If you work it with the breath, where the forehead is connected to something, right? So just for a minute, place your hand in the center of your brows. You can feel just the contact here. And just take a couple breaths just feeling the contact there. If you settle into that, you can feel that's drawing you in a little bit, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we put the head on the floor. If your head doesn't reach the floor, head on a block or a pillow, just so that forehead is supported, again, help you draw in. All right, and then this last one, I love doing this one in the fall, in autumn. And this is called Makrasana, where you're basically laying on the abdomen. And you're resting your forehead on your hands. Now, for some of you, this might not feel comfortable with your neck. You can just bring your hands out to the side and turn the cheek to one side. You can support the head again here if you need to, or you can bring something underneath your hips and your belly if you have any kind of back strain here. But just letting the front body, so feeling the front body sinking into the floor. It's like, you know, the way I like to guide people in is just this total release of all the weight of the body, the weight of the bones, the weight of the tension, just sinking into the floor. And you've got this, it's like being held, right? You've got this hard surface to sink into where you feel supported. This is key for parasympathetic, where you feel the support of the bones, something hard that you can sink into, actually creates that triggers that response. So try this one on your own. I bet you would like it. And then I'm going to stop the share for a moment, and I'm going to guide you through a similar exercise here. The one that I had targeted for today was also a meditative practice, focus on breathing, centering, and feeling space and edge. So it's a little bit different focus, but a similar idea. So wherever you are, if you're seated on a chair, just walk sit bones apart, and then bring your hands to the top of your knees. So you can, again, this sense of weightedness or connection. So you feel the weight of your hands on your knees, and then just gently close your eyes and make sure your feet are on the floor. And then the first thing you want to do as you close your eyes is just notice the rhythm of your breath as it is in this moment, again, without trying to change anything, just tuning in to the rhythm of your natural breath. And then feeling the weight of the hands on top of your knees. Allow that to support you to drop your energy down into the soles of your feet. So you feel this downward sinking. Maybe you can feel the soles of your feet opening up and sinking into the earth. And then imagine that you're growing roots out of the soles of your feet, and see them going all the way down into the core of the earth. And gently find your anchor there. You might feel a heavier weight through your sitting bones as you connect through your feet. Good. Good. And then maintaining that anchor. Bring your attention now up into the center of your head center. And begin to soften the brow. Soften your jaw. Soften your throat. And begin to receive the space of the inhale breath here. Good. And then dropping your attention from your head center down into the center of your heart. And softly let go of any tension or holding or guarding you find there. And begin to soften, expand, and receive the space of the inhale breath here. And then dropping your attention down into your abdomen. And softly letting go of any holding or guarding you find there. Begin to soften, expand, and receive the space of the inhale breath here. And then dropping your attention now down into your pelvis, your sitting bones, your thighs, your hips. And let go of any holding or guarding you find there. And begin to soften, expand, and receive the space of the inhale breath here. And then now feeling the whole body, filling the whole body with breath, from tailbone to crown. Just receiving the space of the inhale breath. And then gently raise the palms of your hands and place them over your eyes. A gentle weight of the lower part of the wrist into the lower part of the eye bone. Bow your head gently, softening your eyes towards the back of your skull. And then slide the hands one on top of the other over your heart, dropping your internal gaze now from the back of the skull down into the center of the heart. Connecting the heart with the mind. And when you're ready, release your hands and just touch your body, your thighs, knees, arms, the belly, and then gently open your eyes. I live here now. Good. Well, thanks, you guys. If you'd like, you can unmute. We'll just open it up to questions.
Unfortunately, while we were trying to do all this meditation, the guy across the street decided to mow, blow, and edge. And I just really couldn't quieten it. So
It's
there you
recorded.
go.
Yeah, that is difficult. That is like advanced practice right there, where what we did with repetition. And I speak from experience. In the beginning, I couldn't shut it out, but I got very good at shutting it out just through regular practice. It could be 5 minutes a day, 3 minutes a day. Just start where you can manage that internal awareness practice in whatever way makes sense. It could be guided. It could just be the breath. But difficult, Rebecca, to say the least.
It was very loud.
I understand. I live on a golf course. 7 a.m. every morning,
Or
usually 6:30 every morning, whether I like it or not. So I do understand. Kathy, you had a question?
Nope.
Okay, I thought you started to ask. Anyone else?
I did see a question in the chat about tapping, which we don't have time for today, but there is a tutorial basically on my YouTube channel. So when you get the email with all the reference information, that would be available in there if you're interested in the tapping, but that takes a bit of time. So
Tammy, could you just in a 1 or 2 sentence thing for people who don't know about it, just
tapping.
say what tapping is?
Yeah, it's a way of it's sort of like a combination of acupuncture without needles and something like EMDR or some kind of, looking at emotions. And so you pair those together. So you're addressing certain meridian points of the body at the same time as identifying what issues are going on or emotions, or sometimes pain, if you have back pain or something, and you pair those together. And by addressing those points, you allow the energy to unblock in the system. So just a different way of, like I do acupressure, it's a similar thing, except that you don't incorporate the energetic piece. So it's a way of being able to unblock things emotionally, especially without having to, have years of therapy or something, because it shifts everything pretty quickly. But and it's something you do yourself. Actually, you can be guided through with examples of what to say, but you do it on yourself. So it's non-invasive, nobody else has to touch you.
Yeah, we'll send that link out. Thank you, Tammy. We'll send that link out. Rebecca, I know you wanted to see that. So we'll send that link out when we do the follow-up email.
I've seen it before, but it's been a while. I thought I had it online somewhere, but it went away. So yes, I was interested in that for sure when I saw that slide.
Yeah, and it's an excellent technique, and it works the energy body and mind-body connection,
Mhm. Yeah,
all
and it's usually
connected.
pretty quick and amazing. Yeah, you make, connections that you hadn't before, and it's always like, wow, okay, I didn't realize that was that was part of it. So it's a journey. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really interesting. And
good.
Teresa, I was just going to mention a follow up on one thing that popped into my head when you were talking about the whole workout thing, with yoga, that is like a
Yes.
workout. And I was thinking, oh, it's like a work in.
Thank you. I've
Which,
heard that said before. Thank
yeah.
you.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a work in, like going in
I
and
like
doing
that. It's definitely a work in, and that I sped up the presentation a little bit because I always, when I get into this subject, is so vast.
Right.
So I am a highly sensitive person, and I do like look at everything. So it's hard for me to bring it all in and shrink it down to size.
You want
So
to
thanks.
share it with
I
everything.
want to share everything. Every piece is so good. I actually have a story about that. If you guys have a quick second, and I think I've shared that with one or two of you. I'm in my 60s now, and when I was in my 30s, I can remember, this was before I really was concrete in understanding my sensitivities. I had a conversation with my mom, and I think I went on for 10 minutes. I know I've shared this with you, Pat. I went on for 10 minutes about something that I really got into and was exploring all these pieces and pulling them all together. And at the end of the 10 minutes, I said, you know what I mean? And she said, no, Teresa, I really don't. I don't think about those things. It was just like, it's like such a big awareness that not everyone thinks like you. Not everyone sees things the way that you do. And then understanding, accepting the person, as you, Tammy, said, in relationship for who they are, and then making choices about what you share, not overwhelming them with your journey when they have no way to
Or at
enter
least
that.
letting go of the expectation that, because it's so
Perfect.
obvious to you, how can they not understand that? It was such an experience,
Yeah.
and recognizing, oh, okay, they won't have the same experience, and
Don't make them wrong for it, right? Yeah.
and it's actually one of the things I find that is particularly helpful for, everyone. It's great to have your tribe of people that you resonate with, but for HSPs,
sure.
to have other
Particularly
highly
important.
sensitives is so important, because you can have an experience like that and they'll go, yeah, because they will get it.
Yeah.
They'll be with you every second of the way, and
Yeah.
experiencing it themselves, and you can have this amazing, it's
like the T1 line. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anybody else before we close? Thank you for bearing with me. All right. Thank you all so very much. Again, I will be sending out the link to the recording, and we'll be good for 7 days. And the references. So Tammy has a few free links and references on her site that are very useful. I do a free Monday meditation where I incorporate mantra and thoughts. So we do about 15 minutes of meditation and about 15 minutes of discussion. If people have the time, that's optional. So I will be sending all that to you. And I want to thank Tammy so very much for being my buddy on this topic that is so absolutely vast and wonderful.
So good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You guys all have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Okay.
Thank you. It was
Appreciate
really
it.
good.
Coming, everyone.
Take care.
Really good.
Good.
Take care.
Teresa,
Yes, ma'am.
is Tammy local here, or is she in Atlanta?
She's in Portland, so she's on your time zone.
Yeah, I'm actually in Bend, but same.
Sorry.
Oregon.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm Pacific time.
So,
Okay.
so we're doing all of this stuff online, so feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Good. That was my question. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Zoom is our friend now, so
Yeah.
Absolutely.
it opens up so many different, possibilities that weren't the case a couple years ago. So,
Well,
yeah, we're all getting more
really
skilled,
good.
huh?
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome, Barb. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Happy
Thank you,
day.
Pat.
Yeah.
Have a good day, everybody.
everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you,
Thank
Tim.
you, Kathy.